Okay, so this is day 2 of Mishlei 1521. Ivelis simcha lachasar lev v'ish tevuna yiyasher laches. So we had a little bit of a difficult time translating the last part, but foolishness is, I don't even want to say happiness. I just want to say joy. I think joy is more, if I had to choose one thing that's more all-encompassing. Foolishness is joy to one who lacks a heart or mind, but a man of understanding will straighten his walking, okay, or he will walk on an even plane, that was Sadigon, or he walks straight, or he walks uprightly, or he walks straight forward. Okay, still open with that. Isaac and I had a little discussion this morning about how to do a rhyming translation. Isaac proposed his thing, and then I proposed mine, and we decided that mine was better. So mine is, folly brings joy to a lacking mind, but the path of understanding doth not wind. Yeah. So not exactly implying straight, but whatever. If you come up with a better one, let me know. Okay, so we had the following questions. What's the subject of the pasuk? Not clear from the surface. 2, what is the simcha in this context? Is it happiness, like as an existential state, like an Aristotelian sense? Is it joy as like an emotional state when people mean when they say happiness? Is it rejoicing or partying, like in Koheles 2, as an activity, or is it something else? 3, what makes Ivelis considered simcha to a chasar lev? And what would that Ivelis be to a non-chasar lev? 4, what's the problem with the first half? All right, fine. So it's a simcha. Let him be happy. 5, what does Ivelis mean in this context? Is it all Ivelis or a specific type? 6, what is a chasar lev? I'm going to add here, and does lev mean mind or emotions or something else? 7, what is the relationship between Ivelis and a chasar lev as opposed to in Avil or Ksil, which is usually what we see associated with Ivelis? 8, what is an ish tevunos as opposed to a mavin or a navon? 9, what makes him yiyasher laches? How does this stem from his quality of tevuna? 10, what are the opposites? Granted, the chasar lev and the ish tevuna sound like opposites, but how are the predicates opposites? How is Ivelis simcha and yiyasher laches? They seem unrelated in subject matter. 11, what would this pasuk have to say about the middleman, like a chacham, someone who's not an ish tevunos, but he's also not a chasar lev? How expansive are each of these two halves of the pasuk? 12, what would the chasar lev perceive? How would the chasar lev perceive the path of walking of the ish tevunos? How's he going to look at what that guy's doing? 13, what does yiyasher lachas mean physically? That's really the translation question. 14, what exactly is the causal relationship between ish tevuna and yiyasher lachas? Did we already say that? Oh yeah. How does this stem from the quality of tevuna? Is that the same question? Is it saying that if you are an ish tevuna, you will be a yiyasher lachas? Oh no, that's different. Or is it saying that if you are yiyasher lachas? Sorry, if you are yiyasher lachas, then you are, or it makes you into an ish tevuna. 15, who's the audience? And if it's a chasar lev, how do you speak to a chasar lev? And then 16, what's the flow within the section? Okay, so meaning in the parak. So we had a couple approaches. We had I guess I grouped them all together because I wasn't sure what was the thing here. So Ariel starting with a good step, which is unlike other Mishleic personalities which have a positive flaw, the chasar lev is described as missing something. So since he's missing lev, that's what makes the Ivelis into simcha for him, because it fills this void. Actually, I think this is a second step. I think you can say one without the other. The implication being that if he had lev, then the Ivelis would not be simcha to him. Okay, step 3, this guy is not a full-fledged avil, but he can still become an ish tevuna. Is it tevunos or tevuna? Tevuna. Okay, fine. I don't know why I keep saying ish tevunos. Step 4 is this is telling him how to become an ish tevuna. Yeah, see, I said it there, whatever. All right, and then Moshe Koppel said perhaps Ivelis is a flawed or superficial value system that he's attempting to derive a real or lasting simcha from. Isaac wanted to say that this is addressing the decision-making framework of the chasar lev versus the ish tevuna. The chasar lev is making decisions based on what he thinks will make him happy. The ish tevuna makes decisions based on the path he's on. Moshe Levin said maybe the mistake is he's looking for happiness, the chasar lev, but then the ish tevuna focuses on the derech yashar, and the type of happiness he gets but doesn't seek is mimela. It comes without him seeking it. And then David just observed that maybe the ish the chasar lev is a quantitative phenomenon, not the ish chasar lev, because everyone can have chasar lev to varying degrees. Okay, then we read the Metzudas David and Rabbeinu Yonah. All right, anyone have any other ideas? I have an idea that I want to say before we go back to the Metzudas David or Rabbeinu Yonah. Anyone? No? Okay, so let me show you what I saw here. So, Isaiah?
Actually, I wasn't sure if we asked this question. Did we ask like is the laches referring to like a path, like a noun, or like the act of walking?
Yeah, so I kind of tried to reflect that in my multiple translations here. It does seem to be a verb, yasher, like he makes straight his walking, which could imply that he has a path, but the adjective it's an adverb. No, it's a laches is an adverb. No. Yasher laches. I mean, I guess it's kind of like a verb and adverb in one, right? He walks straightly. He straightens his walking. I guess I don't know. Whatever. It's a verb though. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, yeah. So I say I think there's a lot of wiggle room still. I don't know if you were saying that to try to get a matir for yourself, but you have it. Okay. All right. So I saw two comments that that I haven't worked this out yet, but it makes me think of an approach. So Ralbag says, "Ivelis simcha." Mishu, yeah, I forgot if I put the Ralbag in the back there. Yeah, I did. Okay. Mishu chasar hasechel, or maybe it's chaser haskel. I don't know if he's using it as haskel or seichel. Someone who lacks intelligence, yismach be'ivelis, he will rejoice in ivelis. Yeah, there.
I did think of an idea, but you could say your idea first.
Okay. Someone who lacks intelligence will rejoice in his ivelis, The who, so what is the ivelis? Hahishtadlus badavar bezulas hasibos haruyos. So that's a nice, clean definition of what ivelis is trying to do things without the proper causes. Okay, meaning that the way you're supposed to make decisions is you think about the effect you want, and then you try to line up the causes and enact them in a way that produces that effect. V'amnam ish tevuna yaishir hahalicha el hamavukash. He will straighten his going to the desired end. Kihu yavo ba besibos haruyos. He will come to it with the proper causes. Okay, so in plain English, what this means basically is that the chasar lev is going to try to get things without thinking about the proper causes that he needs to like enact in order to get them, whereas the ish tevuna will think about the proper causes. Okay, but what the Ralbag doesn't do is he does not explain the relationship between the first half and the second half in the words of the pasuk. Okay, so this we have a beautiful. I'm liking this commentary more and more. The Hoil Moshe, Rav Moshe Tedeschi, or Moshe Hai Ashkenazi, student-ish of Shadal, two words. Yashir lachas v'zo simchaso, and this is his simcha. Okay, so here's what I want to say. Okay, and then again, I haven't worked this out yet, but I was thinking about when you make decisions, you're trying to get things. Okay. And most of Mishlei talks about how you will or will not get those things. And then if you get the thing, then you'll be happy. And if you don't get the thing, you won't be happy. Okay. I think this is talking about there is a simcha that's related to the decision-making process. Okay. And we talk about this a lot in Magic the Gathering, but this is in games in general. There's a bad approach to decision-making called results-oriented thinking. Right. So results-oriented thinking is when you evaluate the goodness or badness of a decision solely based on the results. Okay. Which would mean that the example I usually like to give is if I say, here's a six-sided die. Okay. And you can either bet that it's going to land on the number 1 or on the numbers 2 through 6. Okay. So obviously you're going to bet on 2 through 6. And if I roll it and it lands on 1, does that mean you made a bad decision? So the answer is obviously not, right? You made the right decision, even though the results turned out not in your favor. So most people evaluate their decisions based on the results. So what I think this is talking about here. Oh, so sorry. Let me talk about it a little bit more. So the Chacham will evaluate the decision based on the decision-making process. But what this pasuk is talking about is not the evaluation of the decision, but that there is a joy in making the right decisions based on the proper causes. And there is a parallel and opposite joy of davka not of making a decision not based on the causes. Okay, what I mean by this is like this is the ish tuvuna will make decisions based on the right causes, and he will usually get the right results. But in addition to that, there is a joy, to use stick with the muscle, there's a joy of playing the game, of strategizing and then aligning yourself with the proper causes. And regardless of whether it does or doesn't work out, there is a joy he gets from that straight operation, okay? But then the fool has a parallel thing, so he does not make decisions based on the correct process, but there's a pleasure in abandoning himself to a decision-making process just based on his feelings without thinking about the way things go. And I do think at its root, it caters to an egocentric mentality that my actions are intrinsically good, or my actions are intrinsically like designed for success. And when he like acts that way, then he gets this like rush of joy from that feeling. And the example that Rebbe gives on, I forgot what shiur. I'm reminded of this example, even though Rebbe's talking about a slightly different thing. But he talks about the guy who his car doesn't start, right?
I think it's on appeal of Christianity.
Okay, yeah, that's what my intuition said, but yeah, that his car doesn't start, so he hits it, and then it starts, and then he feels really good, like that scene in Back to the Future 1. Okay, so I think that I want to dissect that into two joys. The joy Rebbe was talking about is he did a crazy action and it worked, right? So he's happy about the result, and he didn't have to go through any chachma to get there. What I'm saying this pasuk is talking about is like the decision to engage the world without causes, that gives him joy. Like there's a joy in that. Okay, so the subject of the pasuk, the way I'm learning it here, is let me try it now, putting this into words here. So this is my approach based on Ralbag and Hoil Moshe, which is the subject of the pasuk is how the chasar lev and ish tuvuna derive joy from their mode of making decisions. Okay, the ish tuvuna thinks things through and determines the proper causes to engage to bring about the desired result, regardless of whether he gets that result. He derives simcha from engaging in that process. A good example of this, by the way, is, I don't know if you've ever okay, I'll give my example. Like sometimes I will plan a lesson for, let's say, high school or whatever, okay? And then something will happen, let's say like the class will get canceled or something like that, and let's say it was a one-shot thing where it's not like I could just use this again. So there are people who will feel sad because they didn't get a chance to deliver the class, okay? Of course, that is something that it was slightly disappointing. I not only get the benefit of the learning I engaged in, but I enjoyed having done the process of preparing. So I get the joy of like lining everything up and like coming up with this plan, even though it didn't pan out the way that I wanted to, So that's that. And then in contrast, the chasar lev makes decisions by throwing himself at reality without thinking. And not only will he usually not get the result. Sorry, hold on a second. Most of Mishlei discusses how he won't get the result he's looking for, but our pasuk highlights the joy he gets from engaging in reality in that way, and that can actually make him more addicted to his derech. Okay, meaning that there is a joy in just engaging in the world without causes. I mean, the example that comes to my mind is like, I feel like, okay, both of my both grandparents on my mom's side enjoy going to Las Vegas. Okay, my grandfather would like playing craps. Okay, which does involve like some sort of strategic betting, and Popo likes slot machines. Okay, so I feel like there is a slot machine type quality to the way that the Chasar Lev engages in reality. It's just like random, 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 and like the fantasy that like you do an unthinking act and then like get rewarded with all this money. There's a fantasy in that. I mean, and I'm saying this apparently, like I know part of the fantasy of slot machines, well, the main fantasy is that you'll win, but like I'm saying that there is a joy in like the Rav would say in footnote 4, like casting off the yoke of objective reality and rational knowledge, and just like engaging in reality blindly, to try to get these results. So that's how I'm learning the pasuk. Okay, before we do Isaiah's, any questions on this? Yeah, Moshe?
I mean, would you say that engaging in strategic thinking is like it is daunting to the person, or rather that they themselves feel haughty that they didn't have to engage in the strategic thinking and they get these results?
That's a great question. I think it could be multi-causal, meaning I think that you could describe based on the Ralbag's definition of Chasar Lev, you could describe the Evil as a Chasar Lev, you could describe the Ksil as a Chasar Lev, you could describe the Pesi as a Chasar Lev, and each of them has a different obstacle that prevents them from engaging the world through causality. So the Pesi, for example, just doesn't know that the world operates through causality, and even when you tell him, he might feel daunted, or maybe the Na'ar would feel daunted by it. The Evil is focused on short-term pleasure, so the reason he doesn't engage in the world is because it's too he just wants the easiest course. The Atzel doesn't like the pain of trying to engage in decision making. The Ksil has haughtiness, the Russia, it might go get, so like I think the Chasar Lev can encompass all of them or many of them. Yeah. Isaac, do you have a comment on my idea, or you have your own idea?
Yeah, about your idea. So yeah. I think I really like this as like a framework. What's like the practical decision making?
Good question. Yeah, let me just add one point here. He draws him from engaging in the process, and that simcha can further solidify his dedication to his approach. Okay, so the question is, what is the practical decision making advice? So I think it is be wary of giving into the emotion of into the technique, quote unquote, of the Chasar Lev, and avoid getting your dopamine rush from engaging in slot machine approaches to reality. Because that's going to draw you into that way of making decisions. Hold on, just another example just flashed into my mind. Okay, not an example, but there's an insidious application of this, okay, which is that we all know, this actually might fit into the pasuk. Okay, so we all know that there are two types of thinking. There's analytical thinking, which is conscious step by step, applying, usually deductive reasoning or cautious inductive reasoning. And then there's intuitive thinking, where you make leaps and you can't explain why, right? So I do think that there are stages in everyone's development in every craft, whether it's in the derech halimud or whether it's in like a practical thing that you're doing, where you fancy yourself in each tavuna, where you are making these intuitive leaps and you think that it's stemming from tavuna, but really you're just catering to giving into your emotions in the area, So like I think that when you're in that developmental stage in any area, like you got to be wary of giving into that desire to engage reality without rules, or if you want to put it into the Bruce Lee version of it, is that there is the at first a punch was just a punch and a kick was just a kick. Then when I I got the exact quote here, even though there's not necessarily an exact quote. Bruce Lee, punch was just a punch. No, not a punch is a punch. That's Freud. Okay. Oh yeah, here we go. There's too many things popping up here. Or I learned Okay, let's close this. Okay, before I learned the art, a punch was just a punch and a kick just a kick. After I learned the art, a punch was no longer a punch, a kick no longer a kick. Now that I understand the art, a punch is just a punch and a kick is just a kick. That's expressing the idea that when you first start off, you're unaware that things operate in accordance with the system of Chachma. So you just kind of throw punches and kicks. And when you look at the experts, you're like, yeah, they're basically doing what I'm doing. But they just do it better, Then when you're learning the art, you realize, no, there's a Chachma here. There are rules, there are principles, there are right ways, there are wrong ways, there are effective and ineffective ways. So you realize, no, I have to consciously align my actions with the art. But then once you internalize all those principles, and they become second nature, you just realize like, oh, of course, this is just the most efficient way to do it. And you do it without thinking, learn the rules, master the rules, dissolve the rules, right? So the beginner's mistake is he thinks he's reached the stage of dissolve the rules when really he's just flailing around, trying to do stuff. So Isaac, I think the way I would say it right now, I don't know if this is the only practical application, but being aware that there is a part of you that rejoices at Ivelis and avoiding catering to that and avoiding mislabeling that tendency as tavuna. Yeah, Isaac?
Yes, I have in addition to that, and also
Sure.
a question on this.
Yeah.
So I think another dimension of that is I think sometimes the way that if you're struggling with a decision, sometimes the way you'll make a decision is by figuring out which one feels good internally. And
Yeah.
I think it's worth being it's important to be wary that there's two different types of reasons why it could be that it feels good.
Yeah.
It could be it feels good because it's the simcha of Ivelis, or it feels good because really that this is the right decision.
Right. That's good. Yeah. I think this is, I'm going to use Trump as an example, but this is true for all leaders. There is one of the biggest pitfalls of leaders, especially in the ancient world, where the king's whim is law, is that there is a pleasure in translating your will directly into reality. So you can imagine if you are just making executive orders, there is a kiyum in just making the executive order and davka not thinking about how it's going to fit into the rest of causality and reality and strategizing, and that's a huge pitfall that you can fall into if you are the head of any organization or something like that, Oof, that's bad. Yeah. Okay. Any other ideas on my idea or observations?
I have a question on your idea.
Yeah, Isaac. Yeah.
Oh, but someone else. Okay.
No, go ahead, Isaac.
So, just how would you read the second half of the pasuk with this? Because it doesn't seem to be just plain shot doesn't seem to be talking about simcha.
Yeah, it does. Ivela simcha lechasar lev, but yiyashar lachas is simcha to an ish tavuna.
Oh, I see. It's the yashar lachas is implicit to the simcha to it.
Yeah. That's and again that I got from the Hoil Moshe, right? Is that let me write this is folly brings joy to a lacking lave, but an ish, a man of understanding, finds joy in I don't know which translation to use, in not straightening his path, in a straight path, basically. Yeah.
So folly brings joy to a lacking lave, but I think I would, if I put it reverse the clauses. Yeah.
Man of understanding. Yeah. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
David.
I was going to say what you were saying sounded like a Derek and the Star thing also. When you say that's what it sounded like.
That's a good question. Yeah. Or a good point, right? Derek Nister. Yeah, that's a good point, right? Derek Nister is in learning. There is such a thing as making intuitive leaps, okay, which is what the ish tavuna does, okay, but it's easy to mistake Iveles as an intuitive leap because it also, this is the key point, because it also doesn't involve conscious, conservative, analytical steps. That's the mistake there, right? So when learning Torah or any craft, guard yourself against mislabeling in that manner. Yeah.
I think there's one other thing that I think a reason why people might fall into this trap of Yonah then
Yeah.
is they want to have something to come out with at the end, whether like in learning like you came out with an idea or in something else if you have like I came out with a product that someone might feel like a push to jump for this manner of Yonah so that they have something, but it's better to not have any takeaway.
Yeah.
And just sit without it, just so you don't fall into
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like you know, the goal is not to be saying svaras. The goal is to like have good ones, you know. So like you could say a bunch, you know, that you're just like throwing out there, you know, pork in the avir, as they'll say. Yeah. Yeah.
Just like personally,
yeah,
I can like that idea. Not because like whenever like I go back home and try talking to other people and like say a partial idea, you know, I'll try to like ask questions and I'll say like, okay, now do you guys want to think about it? And they usually act a little bit confused, even though they know I've done this a few times. So they'll like try to throw out ideas and I'll try to guide them, but eventually they give up and say, we just want to know the answer, right?
Yeah.
We want to know it.
Yeah.
But you just want to think about it. And I think one time one person just said, yeah, I don't want to think about it, I just want to hear the answer.
Yeah.
I'm like,
that is a derech. Yeah. And look, I mean, Mishlei has a name for that, which is chacham. Chacham is a dependent learner who receives knowledge from others, you know, and I'm not saying that person is a chacham, but I'm saying that the developmental level of chacham, in the developmental level of chacham, then that might be appropriate, you know, and hopefully what happens is by exposing them to good quality ideas and kind of like modeling the joy of thinking, so then you can get them to at least want to do that, and then they start trying to do that, and then they you know, then they go forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say one more thing also before I go back to Isaiah, which is that which is going back to like the in developing a craft or an art. I do think it is interesting that there are certain arts where mistakes and ineffective where certain arts are more forgiving to Ivelis than others. So for example, in this is like the classic difference between cooking and baking. Okay, in cooking, then if you can improvise and you could do things like in the less than ideal way and it can still turn out good. In baking, which is much more like chemistry, you can't just improvise and like you put in the wrong measure of something and it could just totally fail, you know? So I think that this advice should be more on the forefront of your mind if you're engaged in an art that like is very forgiving, that you can still get results that you could delude yourself into thinking are good when you engage in Ivelis. Yeah. Okay, Isaiah?
Yeah. Let me think for 1 second. Okay, yeah. So I guess I was thinking about a slightly different like Ivelis definition.
Yeah.
Or like a subset of what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Maybe this pasuk is talking about where a person makes a decision that they make a foolish decision, and a lot of foolish decisions are maybe what it's saying that it's simcha to this person is that like a lot of them are foolish but they feel good in the moment.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's a short-term decision. So it's simcha to him, like he just kind of accepts that happiness. Whereas like a person who is yasher laches, whenever he feels that emotional response to a decision, like he takes that as a cue to like analyze the decision that was just made and potentially straighten the walking that he just did. Like he straightens the act that he just performed.
Okay, that's that's good. Let me try writing this out. So when the chasar lev makes a decision, he feels simcha, and that's the end point. When the ish tevuna makes a decision, he also feels simcha, but he then uses that as a reflection, as a reflection prompt to examine the decision he made and use that insight to straighten his path going forward. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, nice idea. Oren.
So there's also a phenomena, especially among like more conspiratorial minded people,
Yeah.
where like the like facts or like solid reasoning is almost like irrelevant to them. Like there's this quote from the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre, where he says, "Never believe that anti-Semites are completely unaware of the absurdity of their replies. They know that their remarks are frivolous, open to challenge, but like they don't care."
Right.
So I wonder, do you think that's like the same thing that you're talking about, or is that a little different?
It's a good question. I wonder if let's look at the Malbim, because the Malbim learns that an Evil or that Ivelis is intellectual. That comes from he learns that it comes from ulai, which means like maybe or uncertainty. And I'm wondering, so just before we look at the Malbim, if I had to Malbinize your idea, I would say that or Malbinize the pasuk in line of your idea, that there is a joy that comes from knowingly taking a stance on something that is actually not certain, and the chasar lev relishes that. Whereas the ish tevuna is going to, I think you can still read it the way that I want to read it, that he gets his simcha from the step-by-step certainty. That's how I would predict the Malbim. Let's see what the Malbim actually says. All Torah. I did not open all Torah. Mishlei 15. Thank you. Malbim. Okay, Malbim says, "Hachasar lev hu mi she'ein belibo koach hamoshel klal la'atzor bo lelechas b'derech yadua." That's very interesting. That was the question Ariel asked me yesterday. Is what's the Mishleic personality? Oh, maybe you asked me this before shiur. I can't remember. What Mishleic personality can't control themselves? So I said an Evil, and he says he's saying a chasar lev. Is so he's saying lev, I guess, has to do with willpower. And if you lack lev, it means you can't be moshel berucho, or to go on a known path. Kamosha kasav v'gam b'derech shasacha holech libo chaser. Also, this is from Koheles, I think. Also, on the way that the fool walks, his heart is lacking. V'amar b'sifsei navon timtza chachma v'shevet legev chasar lev. On the lips of a navon you will find chachma, but a rod to the back of the chasar lev. Kihu doma kebehema. He's like an animal. Shagam kain ein la koach manhig b'fnim. He also doesn't have any a governing faculty to guide him. And he needs an external force to compel him to go on the proper path. Shehu hashevet, which is a rod. V'hu hefech min hanavon. This is the opposite. So he's explaining this other pasuk. Oh wait. I think he's explaining that pasuk he just quoted. V'hu hefech min hanavon. This is the opposite of a navon. Shebisvasav timsa chachma v'hi tanhigenu. On the navon, you'll find on his lips chachma, and that will guide him. Ukshechasar lev yimtza iveles. Okay, so I think now he's going back to our pasuk. Ukeshechasar lev yimtza iveles usveikos. So when the chasar lev, the guy who can't control himself, finds iveles and sveikos, meaning he finds uncertainty and doubts, yismachba, he revels in it. Ki gam ha'evilim heim levasof chasar lev, because evilim ultimately are chasar lev. Kamosh kasav evilim b'chasar lev yamusu. Evilim will die with chasar lev. Amnam ha'ish tvuna, however, the man of understanding, kvar yodea haderech yashar al pi habina. He already knows the straight path through bina. She hayashrus hu bevina, because yashrus is through bina. Kamo knizkar leel. V'hu yashar lachas, and he walks straight. Ein sarach more v'simanim al haderech shehim tziyune hachachma. He does not need an indicator or signs for the derech, which are the I think it's another word for signs, the signs of Chachma. Because he will walk on the upright path by himself due to his being of Loyit, and he won't err. So this is not exactly what Oren's saying, but while we're here, let's just see if we can figure out what he's saying and then define Oren's idea. I mean, okay, I guess what he's saying is like this, for the first part at least, I think I got. So Chasar Lev lacks restraint. Okay, so what is he going to like? He's going to like areas where there's a lot of doubt and unknown things, because if there's certainty here, he can't lean into it, or it's harder for him to lean into it. You know, if you, what would be an example of this? Like, I bet a Chasar Lev does not like jigsaw puzzles because there's only one right way to do it, you know? So any area of reality you show him where there is a right way and a wrong way, it's going to suggest that you have to restrain yourself in order to get the success that you want. But if there's doubts, then he can just play it, you know? This is why there are a lot more evilim in the soft sciences than in, a lot more Chasari Lev in the soft sciences than the hard sciences, because in sociology and psychology, there's a lot of uncertainty, and philosophy, and you can just say whatever you want and like feel that like it's valid, you know, but you can't do that in physics, you know, or in math. So he likes that. But Ish Tavuna knows the derech. Yeah, see, this is why I'm also not seeing the unity of the two halves. So let's just get the second half. The Ish Tavuna knows the derech yashar based on his bina, and he walks straight without signs based on his bina. So how is that the opposite of what he was describing before? And by the way, he is going off of the premise that I mentioned yesterday to Ariel, which is in Mishlei, bina built off of chachma. So chachma is received knowledge, and bina is original knowledge that you arrive at on your own from your chachma. But what's the connection between the two halves? In Sarach Moreh. I mean, the way he's learning Yashar Lachlan means he walks straight on his own. So maybe I'm projecting, but I feel like this is very similar to my idea, which is that the Chasar Lev does not want any external restraints, and he doesn't have any internal restraints. He just doesn't like restraints, you know. And that's why maybe a Chasar Lev can easily become a blial, a lawless man who just is defined by you know, what some people would call like, you know, chaotic evil, right? Like just you know, just going and doing stuff without any. He's porik ol. He wants to be in a world without any yoke. So the Chasar Lev also doesn't like being yoked, and so he's independent. The Ish Tavuna is also independent, but he's independent because he has the simanim to guide him through his chachma. So it's a slightly the same as mine, but he's focusing, I think, on where the simcha comes from in the independence. I just want to write this down as a possibility here. So the Malbim is maybe like my idea, which is that both the Evil, the Chasar Lev lacks the ability to restrain himself and resists and rejects external restraints. Therefore, when he's confronted with ivelis usfekos, okay, uncertainties and doubts, this gives him simcha because he can now lean into his unrestrainedness. That's not a word. Yeah, it's not a word. All right. And be independent. The Ish Tavuna also is independent and unrestrained because he's internalized his chachma and no longer needs an external guide. Okay, I think it has a very similar vibe to my idea, but he's putting it more in terms of the intellectual, or not the intellectual, into knowledge and doubt, whereas I'm putting it into the experience of wanting to be in a world where there's no restraints, where there's no chachma. I think it's very, very similar. All right, now let's go back to, oh yeah, you want to add?
I was going to say, in terms of how the how the yasher is different, isn't it just like a certain sense of discipline that the chaser lev needs externally, but the
Yeah, that's a good point. Right. The Ish Tavuna?
Ish Tavuna is able to generate by himself.
Yeah, the Ish Tavuna only got here through his internal discipline. And as long as the Chasar Lev lacks that discipline, he will never reach the true independence that he craves. Again, it's a very similar point to mine, but I think this is a thing that everyone wants to be a Mechadesh, and everyone wants to be a revolutionary creative thinker in their art, whether that's thinking or whether that's art. And what you always find when you look at the biography of these people is they went through the discipline in order to get there. Like no one, you can have the best intuition in the world or the best vision in the world, but unless you have that internal discipline, you're never going to develop this into the point where you truly are like a revolutionary, pioneer. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. All right. That's a good idea. Now let's go back to what Oren said. Oren was talking about the conspiracy theorists and said that they know that there are doubts, but they proceed anyway. And what was your question that you posed to me, Oren, that made me go to the Malbim?
Is that phenomena of the guy who just like doesn't care about good reasoning? Is that the same phenomena as what you're describing, or a different thing? That was my question.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely fits into both the approaches that the Malbim saying that I'm saying, right? Is that that he gets joy from that uncertainty. And I think there is a rebelliousness. I mean, there's an ego assertiveness in this of like, yeah, I see the questions here, but I'm asserting my view and I get the pleasure out of that, So I think that that it is related. We don't have enough time to go back to the Yonah. Let's just quickly look at the Meiri. I didn't look at the Meiri yet today. Meiri says, and by the way, just to say this now, the Rabbeinu Sheshis does give an idea, but he actually connects it to the next pasuk, so we'll wait for him. Okay, Meiri says, Kama pami biarnu shekol zman sheyodia al achas min hamidos shehi mimidos haksiel o shehi mitachsis hanhagas hachacham o he'ar limos bara v'livchor b'tov ein tzarich lahashiv ma shekvar nemar tamid. What? Okay, so he says we've already explained many times that anytime Shlomo teaches us one of the midos, that it is a midah of the ksiel, or that it's one of the customary modes of conduct of the chacham, or is an idea about rejecting evil or choosing good. There's no need to respond to what was already said constantly. V'amar hina shas yeah.
Does it respond to what was said, or to say again what was said?
See, I also thought it was. I wanted to say that it's not lahashiv, that it's almost like to repeat.
Right.
That's what it feels like he's saying, but lahashiv is to respond to. So that's what I'm not sure about. V'amar hina shasachal chasar lev. So it's saying that the fool lacks a heart. Whereas lamar chasar hasechel or haskel. Simchaso lashut. Hina v'hina l'tile im b'nei gilo le'echol v'lishos v'lischol v'lisaneg v'elo hatanugim hapchusim v'magunim. So his joy is to there's got to be a good English word for this. Not to swim, obviously, but like to dash hither and thither, to hang out with people his age and to eat and drink and party and enjoy himself in the degenerate and degrading enjoyments. So he's learning simcha as partying, like I was saying for Koheles. V'zohi simchaso v'tachlis kavanaso. This is the utmost joy and of him. This is what he wants most. Ki simcha munachas al hasagas ma shechavin hadam bo. Simcha means when you get what you want. V'hanavon yisponein ba'atzmo ezohi derech yeshara. So the navon contemplates to himself, what is the upright path to go on? Uma hu hatachlis hamechuban. What's the ultimate goal? Umechlin sa'adav umiyashir or chosav lahazik kavanasa. And he prepares his steps and straightens his paths to get what he wants. V'zohe'ar kolelas b'hamonios u'v'torios u'v'sichlios. This is a general lesson that applies to day-to-day things, quotidian things, and in Torah ideas and in learning. Kihu mishtada lahasi kavanaso b'chol ma sheyuchal. He strives to get his what he intends for in everything in every area he can. Uvinin hachachma yiforish inyan yasher laches al seder halimud b'hakdamos uvelimud hachachmas al sidran. Hishamar min harisa. Classic Meiri. That what does it mean to walk straight? It means to go about your learning in the proper order with the preparatory steps, that's Hakdamos, and then the limud of Chachmos al-Sidran, and acquiring Chachma in order and guarding against breaking through and skipping steps. Yeah. So this fits into my interpretation for the first half, but he's taking it more for I was trying to say that the Machshavah Lab gets enjoyment just from indulging in engaging in reality without order. He's saying that he derives his enjoyment from partying, So I think that's going to lead to a separate, a much broader application of the pasuk. Yeah. Okay, we didn't get to the Rabbeinu Yonah, but I'm very happy with these ideas. So basically, just to summarize here, we have my idea, which is the way that they get joy from the way they engage reality. So either engaging reality as an avil of just the joy of the slot machine approach versus the joy of the decision-making process. Then there's Malbim's idea of the wanting the joy of the independence. So the Chasar Lev thinks he can get that by asserting his own way in the face of uncertainties. Whereas the Ish Tuvuna gets it because he's internalized his Chachma and can operate independently. And then there's Isaiah's idea about you just bask in the glow of the well-made decision, or the decision that got good results, whereas the Ish Tuvuna will stop and reflect and learn and straighten his path going forward. He'll invest the simcha in future development. Yeah. Okay. Nice pasuk. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.